Okay, it's great to have you with us today, Anna. It's a great pleasure for us, really. Can you give us a brief about yourself and what you do?
Hello, everyone. My name is Anna. I am a CEO at Galaxy Language Center in Ukraine. We are teaching students different languages, but my main occupation is I am an IELTS trainer. Yes, so I train students who want to pass an IELTS exam and other international English language exams.
Okay. So the first question, why is it good to make mistakes when learning a language?
Well, making mistakes is a natural process. You cannot learn a language without making mistakes. It's similar to a child, a baby, a toddler who starts walking. He or she will definitely fall many times before uh, becoming stable and being able to walk. So the same is with the language. You cannot speak a language without making mistakes. So you don't have to be afraid of making mistakes. It's a natural process.
Okay. So can you tell us about how you learned the language? Like, was it an easy thing or a difficult process for yourself?
It depends because I started learning English many years ago when I was at school. So it wasn't that difficult because this process was quite slow and I was a child. I took my time, right? It wasn't something intensive. So it wasn't very difficult for me. But when I started studying my second foreign language, which is French, it was more difficult because I was an adult, I was a student at university. So the strategy was different, the time limit and all the other things were different, exams. And some time ago, I also started studying Swedish. And that's still another story, different experience, because when you are an adult, right? And when you do not have this language in your environment, it's even more difficult. So I think I have experienced all different variations of studying a language. When you are a child, when you are an adult, a young adult, and when you are a mature adult. And apart from that, I was brought up in a bilingual family because here in Ukraine, a lot of people speak Ukrainian and Russian. So we have a bilingual environment. So that was natural for me to speak two languages from early childhood.
Yeah, okay. Okay, next question. Should learners practice every day?
Yes, definitely. And I think that is the most important step to success, that it's much better to practice in little chunks, but every day, like 30, 40 minutes each day, and maybe an hour each day if you have enough time, rather than trying to cram the words, a list of words in one day before an important event, an exam, or just because you don't have time during the week. It's not the best way.
Okay. Can we say that learning a language and especially mastering the language for IELTS is a challenge?
Yeah, yes, it's a challenge, even for those people who have a good level, an advanced level of language, because it is a language exam which requires a lot of different skills apart from just speaking and understanding. You have to be able to analyze the text. You have to be able to process all the information quickly, to find the right answers very quickly, because there is a strict time limit for the reading text. And also you have to be able to fit the criteria of assessment. Especially that is a problem with writing, because in writing, let's say, if you do not know how you're going to be assessed, it's very difficult to know how you're going to write your test, right? So apart from just speaking or reading the language, you have to know a lot of different things. And I think of course, you can do it yourself, but it's more efficient when you have someone who can help you in that.
Okay. Okay. Is it a good idea to engage your family in your learning process?
I think, yeah, it's a good idea, especially if someone in your family can help you with language learning. But even if not, you can at least ask them to help you create some very comfortable surrounding environment for you to study, like to keep silent, to give you some free time. So instead of washing dishes, you can practice your language or something like this. So definitely it's a good idea.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, next question. Do students need to practice the four skills?
Yes, I think it's quite important to practice all the four skills. Even if you think that you are excellent at speaking, it's still necessary to practice. And as I have mentioned, to have someone assess your skills, because it's very difficult for ourselves to assess our own skills. We are not objective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why for reading, you need to practice the time slot and some analytical skills. For listening, again, attention and some other skills. For writing, I think that is one of the sections which you cannot assess yourself, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You need someone, some external help for this.
Yeah. Okay. Let me ask you this question. Like, how can we as learners, as students, grab ourselves or raise ourselves from one level to another?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because we often experience some kind of plateau in studying the language.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to push yourself further, because once you are quite confident in speaking the language, your progress is not as much visible as it used to be before.
Mm-hmm.
You do not, fix this progress. You know that you are progressing, but it may be very slow. So I think the best way in this situation is to have some kind of challenge for yourself. For example, to pass an exam, or maybe to start reading books in original, or watching more complicated films in original, or translating. So engage in some challenging type of activities, which will definitely make you progress in that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, why should the students try to use the new words when they study, when they speak?
Because again, this is the most efficient way of learning these words. And I always recommend my students that once you have picked up a new word, especially if you have problems understanding or remembering this word, try to immediately use it in your speech, right? Or maybe in your writing, if it's some academic word. And it will guarantee that you will retain this word in your long-term memory. If you repeat it several times, you will have like physical memory of repeating this word. You will have audio memory. You will remember the sounding of this word. So you will engage all type of learning.
Yeah. Senses. Yeah. Okay. Why is memorizing
Yeah.
lists a good strategy for the short term?
Especially if you need to pass your exam, let's say in a week's time, and this is some very specific type of writing, let's say, as we have in academic writing in IELTS. The first part of the writing section is quite specific. You definitely do not use these words all the time, right? So before the exam, it's a good idea to have a list of these words and to try to revise them as many times as possible right before the exam, so that you keep them in your short-term memory. And when you come to the exam, you can operate these words easily.
Okay, let me ask a relevant question to this point. Like, can we consider our minds as vessels? Like, we fill them with the vocabulary and then we empty our minds again and then we fill them again. Like, can we look at our minds in this way?
To some extent, yes, because if you want to like I would say there are two vessels in our mind. One is very huge and it may contain a lot of different words, but it it's like our passive memory, right? And you maybe you will look at the word and you will recognize it, but most probably you will never use it yourself. And there is the other part of this vessel where you have your active vocabulary. This is something that you use every day because you live in this situation and you need to use these words.
Mm-hmm.
And that passive layer of our vocabulary, it's somewhere in our long-term memory, but in a passive way. And to make it active, you need to activate this vocabulary. You need to create the situations where you can use these words all the time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, the next question. What does it mean to use our body clock?
Well, we are all different. And for some people, it's more comfortable to study early in the morning. And for other people, it's okay to study late at night. They may be more productive after the working day. So it's best to try to find it for yourself. What works best for yourself?
Mm-hmm. Okay, can we set like a challenge for ourselves to break this body clock, like challenge our body, challenge our mind?
Yes, I think we can do it, but I don't see a particular reason why we should try to fight with ourselves, right? I think it's better to feel your body clock, your temperament, and maybe to try to adapt to it. Maybe try to adapt your working day to the time you feel better for studying.
Okay, let's say that I get frustrated after like I'm trying to improve my writing skills or my speaking skills, but like I'm not achieving concrete progress. Then can I challenge my body clock and then like put extra efforts, maybe study like 20 hours per day or something?
There were quite a lot of studies, I mean, academic studies, which show that this is not the best way.
Mm-hmm.
That the best way to study is to study in little chunks and then to make a pause and to switch your mind to something totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe to play a violin or, I don't know, to
A
cook
guitar.
something, right? To switch to something totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you come back to something which you found extremely frustrating and difficult, suddenly you realize that, okay, that's not that difficult, right? This is something that I can remember. And actually, all the effective techniques of memorizing new vocabulary, retaining them in your long-term memory, they are based on spaced repetition. That you, let's say, study during one day, then you repeat it in a week's time, then in 2 weeks' time, and by doing so, little by little, you will progress definitely. But with writing, I think it's something slightly different because, again, you have to know how to write, right? Because really, you may be writing many pages, but not progressing in terms of quality of your writing. And here, then yeah, some help may be needed from someone who can tell you, look at this sentence, this is not a good sentence, you have to use a complex sentence instead to get a higher point.
Okay. Okay, let me say this. Okay, let me continue your point. You said like spaced study. This implies that this takes time.
Yes, it
And
takes
this,
time.
yeah, and this may sound like frustrating for the learners. Like they want like something like this, very quick, very short, and then they've done the job.
I am afraid it doesn't work with learning languages. That you have to invest a lot of your time into being able to speak, to write, to read, and whatever you want.
Mhm.
So you may start speaking maybe in 6 months if you work hard, but then to hone language skills to perfection, it may take years of practice, unfortunately.
Okay. Okay, let me ask you another question. Like, okay, for example, I'm a learner, I pay a lot of money, I buy a lot of books, I study a lot of hours, but then someone tells me, your writing is not good enough. How am I supposed to feel about that?
You know, I never try to tell my students that their writing is not good, because I think it's not the best way to approach the learning process. I try to say that we need to work on your writing to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this maybe lack of criticism, it helps them to feel confident. But then we try to improve the writing, right? Not to say that this is bad and we need to make something good, but we need to improve your writing to make it even better. And I think it works in a different way, and it's very encouraging to know that this is not bad, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's not a good teacher who says this.
Okay. Fine. Okay. Okay. The next question. Is it easy to remember, to try to remember the word in an example?
Yes, this is, I think this is the only way, because let's say if you study some words like insist, right? Okay, you know the word insist, but how do you know how to use this word if you don't have an example? How do you know that you should use insist on doing something? But if you remember the phrase, he insisted on going somewhere, you will then definitely know that you have to use insist plus on plus ing form. So this is the perfect way. Your memory will work automatically, and it will give you hints. You will not have to think about it.
Yeah, like remembering chunks of the language, not only
Yes.
the separate words. Yeah. Okay. Why is setting a long-term goal helpful?
It depends on the goal, definitely. But if we talk about, if we can talk about smart goals, let's say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So smart goals are some very specific, measurable goals where you know what you want to achieve and where you set some time limits when you want to achieve it. And it's very important, because in language learning, you will never be able to say, okay, I know this language in a perfect way, because you cannot even say it about your native language, because there is always something you will never know.
Yeah.
And in this respect, when you have a goal, at least you have something against which you can measure your progress. You can say, okay, I have achieved my goal. Because if your goal is very abstract, something I want to be perfect in English or in French or something like this, how can you measure that you are perfect in that language? And when you have some specific long-term goals, and then you need to divide them into, again, little chunks, and to, eat the elephant by pieces, then you can say, yes, I have achieved it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this gives also encouragement and
Yes,
optimism about
definitely.
achieving your goal. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Why does want to rather than have to study help?
Well, if I get this question right, because you may interpret it in a number of different ways. So when you study, you may be helped in a number of different ways, right? So actually everything may be helpful to you. You may communicate with different people who are in the same situation, study situation as you. You may communicate with your teachers, mentors, but it's very important to have someone around you you can address for help. It's very difficult to study the language when you are alone,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you have no one around you.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask a follow-up question. Like,
Yeah.
okay, we say that this is not something that is not easy. And if we ask many people, would you like to do
Mhm.
that? They would say no. It's something challenging. How can people like to do something challenging? How can they embrace it? How can they like it?
That's a perfect question. You know, I think that's the essence of learning process in general and learning a language, because you have to enjoy this process.
Mhm.
Because if you enjoy this process, then physically your brain works more efficiently. Yes, you have this feeling of satisfaction and your memory works much better when you are satisfied.
Yeah.
If you are depressed, if you are unhappy about what you do, your brain will say, stop this. I don't want this. I don't want to remember this experience. That's why there is no universal recipe of how to do this. It will be different for everyone. For example, you will enjoy listening to the songs in English on other language. Someone else will enjoy watching movies, and someone else will enjoy reading. And that will be the most efficient method for them to study the language. So it's best to try to concentrate on the types of activities that you really enjoy to help your brain in this way.
Okay. Let me say something like, you mean that we need to create happiness in what we do?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, okay. Okay, next question. Why does using our best study methods help?
This is again the continuation to this discussion, yes, because they make you feel happy and they will work the best way for you. If, let's say, you enjoy reading some articles about the subject you like, then it will be very interesting, engaging for you, and you will not notice that you pick up a lot of words, constructions, phrases, and you will be happy to use them, right?
Okay, next question. How does reading newspapers and graded readers help?
I think they are very helpful for those who are getting ready for exams or maybe some other types of more advanced activities, right? Maybe it's not the best idea for people who just want to pick up the language for speaking. But for those people who want to pass IELTS exam, it's really important. It's essential to read newspapers, articles, and maybe some academic articles even, because this is your best source of academic vocabulary.
Mhm. Okay.
Some more advanced vocabulary and collocations. You will never come across these collocations, how the words are put together in everyday life.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that has been very interesting talking to you today, and we will talk to you again very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
So.